Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. We're going through chapter 13. We're going to start with verses 12 onwards, 12 to 18. Then Yogeshwar is going to, we're going to first have a reading by David, and then Yogeshwar is going to talk about these verses, and then we'll have comments and questions from everybody, and then we'll go to the next part, which is going to be 19 through 25. That's the plan. All right, so let's get started. David, if you could go ahead.
Okay, yes. So chapter 13, verse 12. Now I shall explain that which is to be known, realizing which the nectar of immortality is attained, that reality is eternal, having me as the supreme, beyond cause, beyond effect, and designated as Brahman, the ultimate truth. With hands and feet everywhere, with eyes, heads, and faces everywhere, hearing all, that reality exists pervading everything in this world. That ultimate truth is cognizant of all the senses of the material nature, yet is devoid of all material senses, completely unattached, yet the sustainer of everything, transcendental to material nature, yet the maintainer of material nature. Within and without all living entities, that ultimate truth is stationary as well as mobile. On account of its being subatomic, that ultimate truth is incomprehensible and is far away, yet also very near. Without division, that ultimate truth appears to be divided among all the various living entities and is to be known as the preserver of all living entities and the destroyer as well as the creator. That ultimate truth is declared as the illuminator of all that illuminates, beyond the darkness of ignorance. Residing within the heart of everyone, it is comprehensible by the wisdom gained from realization, by the knowledge of direct experience. My devotee, understanding this field of activity, knowledge, and what is to be known, thus describes in summary, becomes qualified for my divine nature.
Thank you, David. Yogeshwar, whenever you're ready.
Gyeyam yattat pravakshyami yajñatva anadimat param brahma nasattanna saduchyate. Now Krishna is telling Arjuna that I will tell you that which is supposed to be known. Gyeyam, the root is gya, meaning to know, and gyeyam, meaning something that is supposed to be known, like it is the fundamental of knowledge. If you do not know that, then you do not have knowledge. That is what gyeyam means. If you know the ultimate truth is when you have knowledge. That is gyeyam. And that I am going to tell you. Knowing which you will gain amrutatva, meaning that you will never die. Now, normally, there are so many reasons why we would like to know the ultimate, or we'd like to suppose that we want to know the ultimate. One thing Krishna here is saying is, after knowing which, you never die. You become amara, you become everlasting, you become eternal after knowing that. Knowing Brahma, when Krishna is saying that you will attain that, you will become eternal. What does Krishna mean? One thing would normally feel is whenever somebody is talking about gaining something, like becoming eternal, then our normal wish is to become eternal. It's like, oh wow, what a good thing. If we are getting to become eternal, then why not? So we will first of all take it just as something put in front of a child, for example, a chocolate, and making the child go to get that chocolate, do anything to get the chocolate. Now, we would take becoming eternal like that. That's maybe the first step, I could say. Then the next step we need to realize is Krishna is not only saying that, probably is not saying that at all, but let's go step by step on our understanding to why Krishna would have said that person gets and becomes eternal. Another thing is, you know, on the road, like to becoming or to knowing that, there is, on the road to getting to know Brahman, there is this factor that comes within, that you become eternal. And that is a truth. For example, when it happens on the way, you should know because it happens, not because somebody wants to become eternal that he will, but it's because when you know Brahman, you become eternal. It is a truth that you should know that happens on the way to knowing Brahman. The third way you could put it is becoming eternal in this way is Krishna has put it in there as a factor. Do not only go on to becoming eternal. Like, don't only have your eyes on that. Knowing Brahman is the best of all. Why Krishna has mentioned this on the way, that you will become eternal, that's fine. You'll get to live forever. Why Krishna would have said that it comes on the way is, one thing it could be is, know that you'll become eternal and don't let it diverge you from the way on getting to the right knowledge, on getting towards Brahman. And that, in a way, it shows us that on the way, things are going to come. For example, in yoga, in Yoga Sutras, in the 3rd chapter, all the different types of siddhis are said, all the different types of powers that maybe you'll get, whether it is about the senses or it's about knowing your nature fully, all that is said, yes. But there is a truth in that. It's not that they're just telling you so that you go into the Shastra or you start the practice, not only for that, but it is for you to know that this will come. And then don't allow it to diverge you from the way to getting to the end. Because if you do not know that something will trouble you in the middle or on the way, you will not be able to reach the end. Maybe you'll stop in the middle. When it tries to diverge you, you will get diverged. All this is laid out here, that you should know this. After knowing which, you'll become eternal. The main thing is knowing Brahman. Now, normally we would feel like, oh, why know Brahman? And Krishna has given a reason to become eternal. So we hold tightly becoming eternal because that's our wish. And probably even that's why we say that Atman exists in our preposition. And that's the only way we can stay eternal. That's why we believe Atman exists. It's not because we have realized that Atman exists, that that we say Atman is there, or even about Brahman. It's not that we have realized Brahman is there, but in your hearts, just try to realize this. Is it just because I want to become eternal that I say God is there or Brahman is there? Or is it that I have realized that Brahman is there, that I am saying, this is Brahman and I know Brahman? That is a great distinction to make from step one. If that distinction is not met, what happens is you'll go step by step ahead, but the first step will always pull you back because you wanted to become eternal. When you want something, you never reach Brahman, because the way to Brahman is free from all desires, free from everything else that attaches you. And when we attach to becoming eternal, that's also an attachment. That's also a desire that we cling to. When we cling to that, we never get to know Brahman. We never get to Jnayam. We only stay round and round within the peripheral, never getting to the center. Because what Brahman is something that exists eternally, and that is it. Like, you do not get there through your desires. You do not get there because you want to become eternal. You only get there only if you want to know reality as it is. And why Krishna is saying that you get to become eternal is not like putting a chocolate in front of a child, but it is telling you the truth about when you get to know Brahman, this happens. Not that you should cling to this to get to know Brahman. Now, Krishna is going ahead and telling Arjuna, who is Brahman? Anadimat param brahma nasattanna saduchyate. One thing Brahman is anadi. There is no start of Brahman. And we normally take the preposition that what Brahman is he was at the beginning and everything evolved out of him. That's fine. But there's also another thing we need to know is whether there was a beginning or not, Brahman was there all the time. There's no time Brahman was not there. Because truth is that which is always there, all the time and in all the places. That is what Brahman is. Nasat tanna saduchyate. Krishna here is now going to try to get to Arjuna using all these ways. Krishna here is saying that Brahman is not Sat and he is also not Asat. He is not in the category of the things that you call truth. And he's also not in the category of the things that you call untrue. Brahman is far beyond that. Sarvatah panipadam tat sarvatokshishiro mukham sarvatah shruti malloke sarvamavritya tishthate. Brahman is that which has panipadam, meaning hands and legs, hands and feet, everywhere, in all the places. Sarvatah shishiro mukham. He is facing everyone. He is facing in all directions. There's no place he is not facing. And there is no place his eyes are not there. His eyes are everywhere. Normally want to take this like in a literal way, but Just think about it. The Brahman that is being talked about here is not a person. Brahman in this context is not also any being that we know, alive. And even Krishna knows this. However, Krishna is saying that he has his hands and legs everywhere, and he has his face and eyes everywhere. Meaning that he's trying to tell Arjuna this, that there is no place whereby he does not exist, or his astitva is not there. Everywhere he is. And if Arjuna can see that, as Krishna is telling him, Sarvata Shritimal Loke, he has his ears everywhere. Sarvata Shritimal. Sarvam Avritya Tishtati. There is no place where he is not. Like even in the peripheral, if you'd like to say, the manifest and the unmanifest, would like to think that yes, the unmanifest is Brahman, but also go ahead, like even the manifest is Brahman. There's no part of the world that is void of Brahman. Everything is part of Brahman. If we talk about the center and the peripheral, then the center is Brahman, that's fine. But even the peripheral that you're seeing is Brahman, which Krishna is explaining ahead. Sarvendriya gunabhasam sarvendriya vivarjitam asaktam sarva bhrichaiva nirgunam gunabhoktricha. Now, Krishna is taking this preposition of even the manifest is Brahman, whereby Krishna is saying sarvendriya gunabhasam. He is known to you by your indriyas. It's not that you do not get to him. Everything you listen to is Brahman. Everything that you look at is Brahman. It is part of Brahman. There's nothing of this manifest world that is void of Brahman. We would like to think about things like they are cut off from the ultimate truth. Everything we see would like to think about it like everything we can see is cut off from the ultimate Brahman. Why? Because we can see that everything we can touch or everything that we can see changes all the time. And it's always in that process of changing, and it's how can it be the ultimate truth if it's always changing? What we are not saying is there is that which does not change, even when change is going on. There is that Brahman aspect. For example, if we would say, like, even though the form changes, the function always remains as it was supposed to be. Even in the form, the function is the most manifest. That's how you get to the function. If the form was not there, how do you even perceive what the function is? And there's nothing, there's no form that is void of the function. Everything has the function in it. In the same way, everything has Brahman within itself. There's nothing void of Brahman. However, Krishna is continuing, Sarvendriya Vivarjitam. However, what you look at is not Brahman per se, how you would like to say, oh, I've seen Brahman. Normal example given here is you'll go to a beach and you look at the ocean. You look at the ocean and you'll say, I have seen the ocean. So first we'll like to organize our thoughts about that. What does it mean to see the ocean? What have you seen? For a fact, you've seen the waves of the ocean. There's no ocean that you've seen apart from its waves. So first realize this, there's a distinction that you're seeing the waves only. You're not seeing the ocean. So that's the first thing to know, to notice. Having noticed that, you also need to notice that in essence, the ocean shows itself to you as a wave. And there's no part of the wave that is void of the ocean. There is no wave that could exist without the ocean. Every wave is part and parcel of the ocean. Also, however much you like to think about it or maybe contemplate about it, just try to think about it. Like, think about a wave that doesn't have an ocean within itself, or even a lake, or however you'd like to say, any water body within itself. There's nothing there's no way that can happen. Every wave only happens in an ocean or a lake or any other water body, to say. There's no wave that is separate from its own water body. There's no wave that can exist existentially, that it can be away from the water body and exist. That will not be a wave, because that's the characteristic of a wave. However, you need to know that the wave is part of the ocean now. And that being part of the ocean, if you can see the ocean in that one wave, then you'll be able to know what Brahman is. And if you can see the ocean in that one drop of water, then you will be able to know what the vast ocean is. Sarvata Shritimal Asaktam Sarva Bhrichaiva Nirgunam Guna Bhoktricha. And you see, what the ocean does is, it is where the waves are. Like Sarva Bhrit, meaning it has the Dharan Shakti. It has that power to have the waves on top of it and to control them and allow the waves to be. That is Sarva Bhrit. That is allowing the waves to be. However, it is asaktam. It does not get involved with the waves. It does not get within the attachments of the waves. And in that way, Brahman is one with the waves and is also separate from the waves. He's both. Nirgunam guna bhoktricha. Brahman is nirguna. Those qualities that we know, sattva, rajas, and tama, is void of those qualities. However, that is where all the qualities go, like guna bhoktricha. If you want to hit the wave, you hit the wave with a stone. Essentially, what are you hitting? You're going to hit the ocean with a stone. You're not only going to hit the wave, you're going to hit the ocean as well. In that way, whatever we see in this world, whatever is going into or out of this world, it's part of that manifest form of Brahman. And there is nothing that is void of Brahman. And you see how Krishna is trying to make Arjuna understand that he is part of the wave and he's not part of the wave as well. He is there and is not there. We would normally like to think about that, like, if he's there, then he should be there. And if he's not, he should not be there. But Brahman is such a thing whereby when you point at, like, this is Brahman, or this is, I have known Brahman like this. Once you point a finger to what Brahman is, you essentially lose the point of who Brahman is. And when you can accept that everything is Brahman. Because there is a difference between knowing what infinity is and knowing what infinity is made up of. Infinity is something that all the numbers will come in infinity. Whether you say 10, 100, 1,000, everything, all that comes within infinity. But if you say that I've gotten 100, the number 100, and then you say, I know what infinity is, then Krishna has to tell you that that's not infinity. Infinity is something greater than that. And then when you say, wow, now I cannot get what infinity is, and then Krishna will tell you, yes, now go step by step, like go 100, 1,000, and then go 10,000, continue like that, and you'll get to infinity. This is also part of the infinity. Infinity has all these numbers within it. So infinity is that Brahman. However manifest you make Brahman, Brahman is still there. But if you only take the manifest for Brahman, then you lose the essence of Brahman. Bahirantascha bhutanam acharam charameva cha sukshmatvat tada vigyeyam durastham chantike cha tat. He is outside of all living beings and is also inside. Acharam charameva cha. He is always as he is, and he doesn't move at all. And then Krishna will continue to say that he moves everywhere in this world. There's no place he doesn't move to. So first we'll look at being outside and being inside of all living beings. Existence is within you and is also outside you. There's no place existence cannot be. There's no place life cannot be. Life is everywhere, whether it's in you and even outside you. The ultimate truth is not something that you can keep in one place. It is something that pervades in all places. In the same way that it can move to all places, because something that stays everywhere, everything is part of it. There's nothing that is not part of the Brahman. So it can move everywhere, yet still stay as it is. Sukshmatvat tada vigyeyam durastham chantike cha tat. It is so it is so small, it's so subtle in that way that you cannot know it. Brahman is such that you try to know it, and then when you say, I have known it, that's when you miss the mark, and then you've not known it at that point. And when you say that I cannot know it, after having done all the hustle of knowing Brahman, and you realize that I cannot know Brahman, that's when you know Brahman. That's how Kenopanishad defines Brahman, that when you want to know Brahman, that's a good thing. But when you say that you've gotten to know Brahman, when you know Brahman, that is when you do not know who Brahman is. And when, after having done everything, the Upanishad is not talking about somebody who is just reluctant and doesn't want to do anything, doesn't want to know about Brahman, and then says, I cannot know Brahman. But the Upanishad is talking about somebody who has done everything in his power to know Brahman. He's even gotten to the boundaries of his own existence to know Brahman. And then he sees that the Brahman is infinite. Yet, however I try to get to him, I try to get to him through finite means. And through finite means, I can never get to him. A person who knows that truly knows Brahman. Durastham chantike chatat. He is the furthest and he is the nearest. How is he the nearest? First, that he is your swabhava. Even your Atman is not void of Brahman, like that small droplet of water that we are. We are part of the ocean. It's not like we are out of the ocean and we are existing. We are part of the ocean, part and parcel of it. In that way, it is the nearest thing because it's our swabhava to be Brahman. It is our swabhava to know Brahman. And durastham, meaning however much we look outside, like however much we try to know Brahman, then we are not knowing Brahman. Because when you're trying to know Brahman, it's like, how do you try to know your nature? It's your nature. That is who you are. You can never try to know your nature. Whoever you are is what your nature is. So that's what Brahman is. He is there within. Like, he is part of your nature. He's part of your swabhava. However, if you try to know him, then you'll just go in circles and never know him. That's what normally happens when you try to know who Brahman is or what the ultimate truth is. Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam ivacha sthitam bhuta bhartri cha tajñeyam rasishnu prabhavishnu cha. One thing Brahman is avibhaktam. He is not part and part and part. He is just one whole. And how is he staying? He is staying within each and every living being, and even non-living. Everything is part of his creation. And normally saying that his creation, we normally, how we view creation in our mind is like how a person would make probably a pot or any other substance, and then he would be different, and that pot will exist differently. That's not what Brahman is. Brahman is something that its creation is part and parcel of itself, like a wave of an ocean. There's nothing that, even that creation that we say, that the creation of Brahman, it's not like that wave will be able to be distinct from the ocean. It will always stay part and parcel of the ocean. So in that way, avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam iva cha sthitam. He is staying within living or non-living, everything. And what does it look like when we look at everything that we can put our sight on? It looks like Brahman is part and part and part. Like he's staying within one person, he's staying within another person, and he's also staying within an animal. Like we see those gaps between. Krishna here is saying that that gap is not there at all. We would like to think that that gap is there, but there is no gap. Avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam iva cha sthitam. It's like we look at the waves and then we say that there is a gap between the waves. Therefore, there should be a gap between the ocean. And that doesn't happen. Even where there is a gap that the wave makes, like there's an up, there's a peak, and then there's a trough of the wave. And even in the down of the wave, the ocean exists. That is important, that it also exists within the peak of the wave, and it also exists within the down of the wave. Everything is part of the ocean. Another way to put it is, look at each and every form that we are looking at. It's part of the peripheral. But then there is that essential function that runs through all the forms uniformly. In that way, he is bhuteshu sthitam. He is living within each and every form. Bhuta bhartri chataj jnayam, grasishnu prabhavishnu cha. He is bhuta bhartri. And he is also grasishnu. He is the one who gives us our food. Would like to think conceptually that yes, Brahman is the one who gives us our food. That Bhuta Bhartri is the one that provides each and every living being with what they need to survive. That's fine. Krishna is saying that. But Krishna is also saying that Grasishnu, Prabhavishnu cha, not only giving you the food that you need, but he is also the death that you'll face. Would like to put Brahman as only one part of existence. He's only that good, that he only provides the good to us. Also see Brahman within death. Accept reality. Also see Brahman within your sorrows. That is a way of accepting what reality is, what Brahman is. Would normally want to accept happiness, but we normally do not want to accept sorrow in our lives. But Krishna is saying that Brahman is also Grasishnu, meaning he's also he who takes away from you. And Prabhavishnu is also that which makes you great. And he's also that from which everything evolves. Jyotishamapi tajyotis tamasa paramuchyate jnanam jneyam jnanagamyam hridi sarvasya vishtitam. And he is the light of all lights. He is also that which is beyond all the darkness, all the ignorance, tamasa here. If we're thinking about the light that we perceive, then we're only looking about what we get through our eyes. But there's also that light that is of knowledge. When we have knowledge within ourselves, we feel ourselves as enlightened. That's the name we give to people who know everything, like enlightened. He is the light within all the enlightened. He is the light within all the knowledge. And he is past all the ignorance. There's no part of Brahman that is of ignorance. How is he staying within everything? Jnanam jneyam jnanagamyam hridi sarvasya vishtitam. Now there's one thing that we should know about Brahman is not only is he jnayam, not only is he the goal of knowledge, but jnanam itself, knowledge itself is Brahman. Even the person who is walking the path of knowledge is Brahman himself. So it's like Brahman, using Brahman is getting to Brahman. That is how Brahman should be viewed. We always normally want to see Brahman as something to get to only. What we are using to get to Brahman is not Brahman, power minds, power knowledge. But Krishna is saying that jnanam jneyam jnanagamyam. Whatever you think about, whatever you use to get to Brahman is also Brahman, is part of Brahman. The concept about jnayam, jnanam, and jnata, meaning that which is supposed to be known, the known. That which is used to know it, the knowledge, and he who knows, the knower. The knower, the knowledge, and the known three of them are part and parcel of Brahman. At first, Krishna said that Gyayam is Brahman. Krishna is taking a step ahead. Not only that which is supposed to be known is Brahman, that which you're going to use to know Brahman is also Brahman. He who is going to know Brahman is also Brahman. Iti kshetram tatha jnanam jneyam choktam samasatah mad bhakta etad vigyaya mad bhavayo papadyate. Like this, Krishna is saying, I have told you about the kshetra, the place or the environment in which everything happens, all the action happens. And I have also told you jnanam, that which you'll use to get to Brahman. Those which are the tools that will help you to know the ultimate reality. And jnayam, that which is supposed to be known, that which is ultimate reality. I have told you that. And I cannot tell you each and every detail of that. Krishna knows that. That's why Krishna is saying, samasatah. I have told you in summary that mad bhakta etad vigyaya mad bhavayo papadyate. After knowing which, he who is my bhakta, he who is in devotion of me, he gets to my bhava, he gets to me, he gets to how I am, he gets to the state in which I am. That is not a small thing for Krishna to say that a person who knows this as it is, gets to me, gets to the state in which I am, gets to the state of being that I am in. That is really important. And that is what we always want. We want to get to Brahman. We want to know what Brahman is. And Krishna here is saying that the only way to know Brahman is let that drop of water just drop into the ocean and become one with the ocean. That's how you get to know who Brahman is. When you just fall into Brahman and allow yourself to dissolve into Brahman, you will know what Brahman is. There's no way you can stay separate from Brahman and want to know Brahman. In that way, you may know about Brahman, but you'll never know Brahman. You'll never experience what Brahman is. And until you experience what Brahman is, you'll never really know what Brahman is.
Wonderful. Yogeshwar, that was amazing. All right. Now, there are two things that I would like to do. Firstly, I want to open it up for questions and comments. And then when we are done, I want to read some commentary by Sri Aurobindo, because this is a very deep topic. This is the most, deep, this is deep metaphysics. So I want to first see where everybody is, and we'll go from there. If you'd like to ask a question or have brief comments, go ahead and type an exclamation mark in chat. Start with Ed. Give me just a second, hold on. Yes, go ahead, Ed.
So this is a very simple and basic question, and this is going back to section 12. So early in the Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that everyone is immortal and eternal. And so immortality as a result of knowledge must mean something different, since everyone is already immortal, whether they are ignorant or not. So how can immortality be a goal? It seems that the goal can only be to know or experience that one is immortal, not that one becomes immortal, right? I'm just checking.
Wonderful question. Thank you. Yogeshwar, go ahead.
Yes, so Krishna is saying that we are all immortal. But you see, the thing is that even though we get to know that we are immortal, when death comes in front of us, what will happen? What's the first instinct? You will say, I am dying. The I is which will die. It's not that the Atman or the Brahman will die within. That's always immortal. That's what Krishna is saying, that the Atman will and the Brahman will stay forever and is immortal. But then the concept that we have of ourselves, that we are this, that is what is supposed to be removed. And you will experience that even when death comes, I am not dying. Even when the hardest thing on life experience comes, it doesn't befall on me. It is something that is apart from me. And that attachment towards the body is what fades away, and you experience who you truly are.
Wonderfully put. Thank you. Next up is Evanik.
Yeah, so what I just have a quick comment on when you talk about when we realize we don't know Brahma, then we know Brahma. And I found that profound and freeing, because we're all trying to know God or know Brahma. So it's like, okay, that it's not that it's an impossible goal. I don't read it as that, but I read it as just like an ongoing goal. Like it's like knowing the Tao or knowing God. It's something that's just it's going to be a constant thing, and you're always going to have, it has levels to it. So knowing God or knowing Brahma is something, there is no end to it, just like there's no end to Brahma. It's just a constant thing that we're doing every day. So if there is no end to it, there is no end goal, let's just say, we're just experiencing it. And then going along with what Ed said about the immortal part, and what you said, you guys were about our immortality. I just think it's just together, that's just one of the most freeing things I've ever heard, because not that it's impossible, but it's not a goal that you should even be thinking about, because it's just going.
Wow. Evanik, that was wonderful. When Tao Te Ching starts, the Tao, which can be named, is not the real Tao. It's the same, it's saying the same thing. Because when you say that you know the Tao, you're saying that you named the Tao. And then what happens is that what you have is the name and the association that you have with the name. So it is something in the periphery, actually. And because you think you have that, you're no longer focused on the Tao itself, which just is. So beautifully put. Thank you. Thank you. What I want to do, if anybody else has questions, folks, feel free to ask any question. Okay. I'm going to read something from Sri Aurobindo. This is such a deep topic that I want to go through it, one more time through the commentary of Aurobindo, and then we will move on. Again, you can go ahead and ask questions. So I'm going to start with 13. I'm going to read the verses on which he's giving commentary. Sri Aurobindo is giving commentary. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to read commentary on individual words that he has. This is number 13. I will declare the one object to which the mind of spiritual knowledge must be turned, by fixity, in which the soul clouded here recovers and enjoys its nature and original consciousness of immortality. The eternal supreme Brahman, called neither Sat, that is existence, or Asat, non-existence, This is his commentary on the word immortality, enjoys its nature and the original consciousness of immortality. So Sri Aurobindo says about immortality, the soul, when it allows itself to be tyrannized over by the appearances of nature, misses itself and goes whirling about in the cycle of births and deaths of its bodies. There, passionately following without end the mutations of personality and its interest, it cannot draw back to the possession of its impersonal and unborn self-existence. To be able to do that is to find oneself and get back to one's true being, that which assumes these births but does not perish with the perishing of its forms. To enjoy the eternity to which birth and life are only outward circumstances is soul's true immortality and transcendence. The next part of the verse is that he's talking about it enjoys its nature and its original consciousness of immortality and the eternal supreme Brahman. So now he's talking about Brahman. The eternal, or that eternity, is the Brahman. Brahman is that which is transcendent and that which is universal. It is the free spirit who supports in front the play of soul with nature and assures behind their imperishable oneness. It is at once the mutable and the immutable, the all that is the one. In his highest supracosmic status, Brahman is the transcendent eternity without origin or change, far above the phenomenal oppositions of existence and non-existence, persistence and transience, between which the outward world moves. But once seen in the substance and light of this eternity, the world also becomes other than it seems to the mind and senses. For then we see the universe no longer as a whirl of mind and life and matter, or a mass of determinations of energy and substance, but as no other than this eternal Brahman. Next, I'm going to go to verse 15, and Sri Aurobindo has commentary on the word all. So the verse 15 says, all the senses and their qualities reflect him, but he is without any senses. He's unattached, yet all supporting. He's the enjoyer of the gunas, though not limited by them. Sri Aurobindo says, all relations of soul and nature are circumstances in the eternity of Brahman. Sense and quality, their reflectors and constituents, are this Supreme Soul's device for the presentation of the workings that his own energy in things constantly liberates into movement. He's himself beyond the limitations of the senses, sees all things, but not with the physical eye, hears all things, but not with the physical ear, is aware of all things, but not with the limiting mind, which represents but cannot truly know. Next, I'm going to go to verse 18, and he's going to talk about the concepts knowledge and hearts. So number 18 says, he's the light of all lights and luminous beyond all darkness of our ignorance. He is knowledge and the object of knowledge. He is seated in the hearts of all. So he says, he is knowledge and the object of knowledge. What is knowledge? The spiritual supramental knowledge that floods the illumined mind and transfigures it is the spirit manifesting itself in light to the force obscured soul, which he has put forth into the actions of nature. Last, he says, he is seated in the hearts of all. This eternal light is in the heart of every being. It is he who is the secret knower of the field, Kshetrajna, and presides as the Lord in the heart of things over this province and over all these kingdoms of his manifested becoming and action. Right? If you folks have any comments or questions, you're welcome to do that. Yogeshwar, would you like to comment on anything?
No.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Go ahead and type an exclamation mark if you do. You don't need to. If you want to, you're welcome to do that. Otherwise, we will go to the next batch. Right? Okay, let's go to the next batch. And we're going to start with 20, right, Yogeshwar? And we're going to go up to 25. Yeah, okay. All right, David, could you go ahead and read from 20 to 25?
Right, it's 20 in mine, and some people may number it as 19, but yes. So, know that verily both the material energy and the individual consciousness certainly are beginningless, and know that transformation of the body and the three modes of material nature also certainly are produced by the material energy. In the matter of creation, the material energy is responsible for cause and effect. In the matter of experience, happiness, and distress, the individual consciousness is declared responsible. The individual consciousness situated in the material energy certainly experiences the three modes of material nature produced by the material energy. The beguiling infatuation of these three modes of material nature is the cause of a being's innumerable births, superior and inferior in the womb of variegated life forms. Within the body, supreme to the individual consciousness, an indwelling observer, a sanctioner, a preserve, an enjoyer, and indeed ultimate controller, as well is described as the ultimate consciousness. Anyone who understands in this way the individual consciousness and the ultimate consciousness, also in the material energy along with the three modes of material nature, one, although existing in any condition, never takes birth again. some by the science of the individual consciousness attaining communion with the ultimate consciousness, perceive within the self the ultimate consciousness by meditation on the self. Others by the discrimination between matter and spirit, and others by the science of uniting the individual consciousness with the ultimate consciousness by actions.
Thank you, David. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to read the translation of Sri Aurobindo. This is very deep, so let's do two English readings, and then we'll go to Yogeshwar. So this is number 20. Know thou that Purusha, the soul, and the Prakriti, nature, are both without origin and eternal. But the modes of nature and the lower forms she assumes to our conscious experience have an origin in Prakriti, in the transactions of these two entities. The chain of cause and effect and the state of being, the doer, are created by Prakriti. Purusha enjoys pleasure and pain. Purusha, involved in Prakriti, enjoys the quality born of Prakriti. Attachment to the qualities is the cause of his birth in good and evil wombs. Witness, source of the consent, upholder of the work of nature, her enjoyer, Almighty Lord, and Supreme Self, is the Supreme Soul seated in this body. He who thus knows Purusha and Prakriti with her qualities, whoever he lives and acts. Let me start again. He who thus knows Purusha and Prakriti with her qualities, howsoever he lives and acts, he shall not be born again. This knowledge comes by an inner meditation through which the eternal self becomes apparent to us in our self-existence, or it comes by the yoga of Sankhyas, the separation of the soul from nature, or it comes by the yoga of works. Thank you.
Srikant, sorry to interrupt, but I agree that those last two sentences are really important. And I'd like to read the Eknath Erzwaran translation, just those last two sentences as well. I think that people understanding this from different perspectives is really helpful. So the last two in the Erzwaran are, whoever realizes the true nature of Purusha, Prakriti, and the gunas, whatever path he or she may follow, is not born separate again. Some realize the self within them through the practice of meditation, some by the path of wisdom, and others by selfless service. Others may not know these paths, but hearing and following the instructions of an illuminated teacher, they too go beyond death.
Sure. So, okay, so that's number 26. Okay, sure. Thank you. Thank you, David. All right, let's go to Yogeshwar. Yogeshwar, go ahead.
Prakritim purusham chaiva vidyanadi ubhavapi vikaranscha gunanschaiva vidhi prakriti sambhavan. There are two within whatever experience we have. There is one who is conscious and knowing everything that is happening. And there is the other where everything is happening. Whether it is the mind or it is the body, all that is the space in which everything is happening. That is all Prakriti. And different from that, the seer and the one who is experiencing all that is happening, that is the Purusha. Both of them are always there. and have always been there since the beginning. And what we need to know about Prakriti is all the three gunas, sattva, raja, tama, three qualities, they are made of Prakriti. Vikaranscha, everything that we are seeing, whether it is something that is outside of our body or it is part of our body, even the thoughts in our mind, all the activity that is going on is caused by Prakriti. That is caused by, and Prakriti, which is also translated as Maya, is the Shakti, is the power of the ultimate. And in the same way that the ultimate, or we'll say Brahman, in the same way that the power, like your power, your intellect, your intellectual power, let's say, is not different from you. Like you and your intellectual power, right now, you feel that that is who I am. Like there's no difference that you see. What we need to know is that in ours, there is a difference because our intellect is different and we are different. Where everything is happening, which is the intellect, the mind, that is all the activity. Where here Krishna is saying vikara, because vikara means changing. When something changes, just know that it is part of Prakriti. When something stays as it is, whether when we are young, when we say that I experienced this, and right now we are saying that I am experiencing this. He who experiences all is the Purusha. Krishna is going on to explain what it means. Karya karana kartritve hetu prakriti ruchyate Purusha sukha dukkhanam bhoktritve hetu ruchyate. What is Prakriti? It is where Karya and Karan, the cause and what is caused, the cause and the effect are always there. That is Prakriti. That is the Prakriti which causes all this, cause and effect to be there. That is Prakriti. And where there is no cause and effect, that is only one place that we know, is our consciousness. That one place, which is different from cause and effect, that is Purusha. And who is Purusha? Sukha dukkhanam bhoktritve heturuchyate. He is he who is knowing all the experiences, whether it is happiness, whether it is sorrow, where happiness and sorrow is happening, that is different. But the one who is experiencing it is different. For example, your body may have something like a disease or something. Yeah? So where it is different, where the disease is different. But the one who is experiencing it is different. Qualitatively as well. Because the quality of Prakriti that Krishna is telling us here is, it is always changing and it brings cause and effect into motion. And Purusha, so what we need to know here is when we talk about Purusha, then we should negate Prakriti. We should say Purusha does not have cause and effect within itself. And it also does not make cause and effect happen. Purusha is just as he is. What happens in Purusha is the bhoktritva, is the experiencing. Purusha prakriti stho hi bhungte prakriti jhan gunan Karanam guna sangosya sadasad yo nijanmasu. Now that bhaktritva, or the experiencing, how does it happen? When we're experiencing something that's outside or something that is of Prakriti, how does it happen? Krishna here is putting a very good concept about Sankhya. Purusha Prakriti sthohi bhunkte Prakriti janguna. When Purusha is seated within Prakriti, when the knower, that's a Kshetragya, who is also said behind, is within the Kshetra, is within Prakriti, then what will happen is he will experience all that is manifested by the Prakriti. And so what Krishna is trying to tell us here is when he is within Prakriti, that will happen. When he steps aside from Prakriti, then that will not happen. Karanam guna sangosya sadasad yoni janmasu. Because of this relation that both of them have, that Purusha sits within Prakriti and he experiences everything, that is a cause of something. What is it a cause of? Guna sangha. Guna sangha meaning the Purusha thinking that the qualities of the Prakriti have become one with me. That is guna sangha. That's attachment with the qualities of the Prakriti. And sadaswad yoni janmasu. What happens is you also have birth and death. You also have this regression of cause and effect within yourself. Because what birth and death is a part of cause and effect. It is brought about by Prakriti. It is a vikar of Prakriti. That if you are one with Prakriti, that will happen. When you are standing aside from Prakriti, that will not happen. The concept of Sankhya here is what Sankhya says in simple terms, how we could know it now is just not a mirror, but glass in front of you. Yes, there's a glass in front of you. You're viewing the world through the glass because that glass is known as Chitta in Sankhya. Chitta would be, for example, that the space in the mind where everything happens, where all the thoughts arise and fall, where all the intellect arises and falls. That is the space in the mind. That is Chitta. Now, just give an example of Chitta, which is a glass. And that glass, as it is, you can see through it. That means that you can see through into the world using that glass. What happens is when we normally see in the glass, there's nothing else we are seeing. We're not seeing ourselves at all. The light, all the light that we are shedding is on the other side. All we want to see is on the other side. So we shall see everything that is on the other side, which is Prakriti. Certainly when you realize that when you see in the glass, you'll also be able to see your own reflection. But that is subtle, it's not prominent. What is prominent is Prakriti, is what is on the other side. So the subtleness of seeing yourself in that glass, and when you're able to see yourself in the glass, you'll realize that, oh, not only is something on the other side, there's also something on this side of the glass. And when you realize that, that is looking at yourself in the chitta, looking at yourself in the space of the mind. Still, there is a step above that, which is not seeing yourself in the glass, but realizing that you are different from the glass now. Not only having your identity attached to the glass, when we normally revise this, make it a habit of looking through the glass, there's no any other way we look at the world. We only look at the world through the glass. We cannot look at the world without the glass. And definitely we do not know that there's something on this side of the glass. So the first step is to look in the glass, but certainly, and try to look at yourself. You'll see yourself in the glass. And then what you also need to know now is, yes, there's an image in the glass of yourself. There's a reflection in the glass. But then there is someone whose reflection is on the glass. And the quality of the reflection and he who is on this side of the glass is totally different. Because the reflection is just nothing. It's not a substance. It's just a reflection of what is. So look at whose reflection is it? Not only the reflection, but whose reflection is it? When you contemplate on that, you'll really know that there is something on this side of the glass, and then experience he who is on this side of the glass. Krishna now, when we look at this verse again, Purusha prakriti sthohi, bhunkte prakriti janguna. When he's looking through the glass, he will identify himself with the glass so much that everything he sees through the glass, he will say is mine, is something I identify to. Because he has no identity apart from the glass. And what does that become? Karanam guna sangosya. It becomes the cause of becoming attached to the qualities that are on the other side of the glass. And also, we also need to know this, that the glass itself, because it's also made of prakriti, that we need to know. The chitta, according to Sankhya, is also made of prakriti. It's not void of prakriti. But it is something that is used to see on the other side. So even the chitta itself will be stained with these three qualities of the gunas. When you identify yourself with the chitta, you will be within those three qualities. You will have those three qualities within yourself. That's how you'll perceive yourself. It's not that you will have them, but then that's how you'll perceive yourself as that I am getting angry, or that I am in a bad mood. That's how you perceive yourself. But you never perceive yourself as I am looking at my mind, and my mind right now is in a bad mood. So that's how you need to change your perception, slowly by slowly. Upadrashtanumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwarah paramatmeti chapyukto dehesmin purusha parah. Krishna is now pointing out the Purusha who is apart from the Prakriti, who is apart from the Chitta itself. So Upadrashta meaning he who sees. So he who sees everything that is through the glass, and he who sees his own reflection in the glass as well. That is the Updrashta. He is the knower and he is the seer. Anumantacha, he who is always contemplating on who is. And then Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwara. He is the Bharta, meaning he is he who takes in. He who takes in is the Bhokta. He who says that, oh, I am part of the Prakriti and I am going to now explain what Prakriti is. That is making himself the Bhokta, the experiencer. And then Bharta is having the palette in your hands and allowing more to come, allowing more of the gunas to come, allowing more of the Prakriti to come onto your palette. That is becoming the Bharta. It is like Bhokta would be the person who eats the dish and Bharta would be the person who makes the dish, makes the recipe itself. So we do both. We do both. We make the dish, we make the recipe itself, and then we also enjoy the recipe here. That's what's happening. We make our experiences, and then we also enjoy our experiences ourselves. Maheshwaraha. And then Krishna is also saying here that not only that, don't stop there. Normally we want to make only one definition to it and stop. Maheshwara as well. He is the one who is in control of everything, including the chitta, including everything that is on the other side of the chitta as well. Meaning that you are in control of the mind itself, intellect itself, your mental space, everything. You're in control of each and every subtle thought that happens within. And you're in control of each and everything that happens in your body. What is happening is, this tool that we are given, which is the body, because it's a tool in the aspect that it is part of Prakriti. We use it to interact with everything else. The tool we are given is sophisticated. It's not simple. But what we do is we never want to read the user's manual of how to use it. Normally, if we get a complex instrument, a complex tool, maybe it's a camera, because I do not know how to use cameras. So that's the example I know. We always try to use the user's manual. Like, what does it say? How should I use it? How should I turn it on? Then how should I not allow it to become false? Or how should I keep it safe? And we never do that with this body. Such a complex tool. That's why then we have these problems of, I have continuously running thoughts, I cannot stop them. So you're not using the manual itself. You're only doing the work through the tool. And sometimes it goes wrong. So what we are doing is playing by chance. If you're successful, we're successful. If we fail, we fail. But if you use the manual, then you're sure of being successful always. You know how to use the tool which we're given. And that is what Ishwara means. Not just control as in making it a slave. That's not the thing. But control as in you should know whatever is happening within. You should know how to use it to your advantage. You should know how it is used, and it can be of your disadvantage. Because if you also do not know that, then sometimes you'll use it to your disadvantage as well. You should know both and then use it. Paramatmeti chapyukto dehesmin purusha paraha. He is also called Paramatma, Parama Atma, something that is away from what we know. Normally, Atman is also something that is away from the Prakriti. Why did Krishna have to say Param Atma, meaning beyond the Atman? So the concept of Atman that we know until now is something that, it's just, for example, that reflection of ourselves that we see in the glass. We've not yet known somebody who is away from the glass. And sometimes we mistake it with the true self, that is who I am. But certainly realize that is still a reflection of who you are, not who you are. And until you still identify yourself with that reflection, you'll never know who you truly are. So the Param Atman, meaning he who is beyond everything. Dehesmin Purusha Paraha. Where does he who is beyond stay? In this body. Nowhere else. Don't go away. Don't go looking for him in places. Yeah? In this body he is. And it is the swabhava of the Atma to be that. Dehesmin Purusha Paraha. Again, Krishna emphasizes it. Purusha Paraha. He's already said that The Atman is beyond, he who is beyond. And Krishna is again emphasizing that that Purusha is para, mean that Purusha is beyond. And he is not only that who is known in the chitta, he is not only he who is known in the space of the mind, but he is he who is known as separate from everything, including separate from the intellect, separate from the body, separate from the actions that happen within the body, separate from the actions that happen within the mind, which are thoughts or intellect or anything. Is separate from that. Ya evam vetti purusham prakritim cha gunai sah sarvatha vartamanopi nasabhuyo bhijayate. If you know Purusha and Prakriti, and not knowing Prakriti only, knowing Prakriti with all its three qualities, which Krishna is going to explain in chapter 14, the next chapter, descriptively. If you know Prakriti with all its three qualities, and you know the Purusha, as I have explained, what happens to that person? Sarvatha vartamanopi. However he is, in whichever state he is in right now, nasabhuyo bijayate. He doesn't have punarjanma. He doesn't have to have a rebirth. One thing I would like to point is we've already talked about rebirth or second birth or born again, the concept. So that concept of rebirth, if we can have a rebirth on our own, meaning if we can detach from the ignorance and detach from the prakriti on our own, when death comes, yeah, there will be nothing for it to take away from us. When death comes, it will take away the body, it will take away the mind, it may take away the intellect, everything. But there is something essentially that will remain. And that is something that will not be taken away from you. That is who you are. Once you know that, once death doesn't happen at that point, then you'll also not have to have a birth again. It's like if you do not sleep, you'll never wake up. There is that given, there is a given that if you want to wake up, you must have slept. Even for 1 hour, 2 hours, it doesn't matter. But waking up, that activity of waking up, it shows that that person must have slept. So that activity of being born again, it means you must have died before. And that quality of death is not if you are separate from the Prakriti. Because once you're separate from the Prakriti, there's no death that happens. And when there's no death that happens, there's no rebirth. If there's no sleeping, there's no waking up again. How does this happen? Now, Krishna has talked about all this to Arjuna, about the Purusha, about the Prakriti, and Arjuna knows it a bit. He's got the gist of it after having Vishwarup Darshana, after knowing Krishna as he is. He's also getting to know what existence is itself. And then Krishna is laying down the paths that doesn't matter how you reach, you should reach the ultimate. Dhyanenatmani pashyanti kechidatmanam anye sankhena yogena karma yogena chapare. There are so many different ways of getting to the peak of the mountain. However you get there doesn't matter, but getting there matters. And as you have also looked at this, it depends on your swabhava. It depends on the qualities that you have, on the path that you will choose. Some concentrate on the difference between Atma, the difference between Purusha and Prakriti. some concentrate, yeah, on the Atman only now. Some will concentrate on the Purusha keenly, and that concentration is brought about by dhyana. Having ekagrata, having a focus point first. So when you have a focus point and you focus on one thing, that becomes the object. Yes? When you focus on it, then essentially what happens is, after focusing it on so much, you also realize that there's someone focusing on it. After realizing that there's someone focusing on it, your focus turns backwards now, not going outwards, but going inwards now. When it goes inwards, you realize who the true self is, who the seer is. When the concentration turns back to the seer. Anya Sankhyena Yogena. Some use that minute distinction between the Purusha and the Prakriti, understanding it through knowledge, through the intellect, and that is Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga meaning the root word is Sankhya, the root comes from Sankhya, meaning to count. Like Sankhya means numbers, but then when you have a pratyaya on itself, yeah, so it's like counting, that is Sankhya, meaning it means to enumerate. So in that aspect, when you count, like this is different. When you're counting, you have to say 1, 2, 3, like you're differentiating each and every one of them. You're saying this is different from that. This is different from that. And that's how you count. You can never count everything as a wholesome. When you count, you differentiate them. And that differentiation comes first to differentiate all the aspects of Prakriti, meaning that which is on the other side of the glass, and then that which is the glass, and then counting it as Prakriti as well. Then the reflection that is seen within the glass, also seeing it as a reflection now. You count each and every one of them as different. And then you get to the real Purusha. You get to who you are. Karma yogena chapar. Another way, subtle way, is karma yoga. Doing each and every activity without allowing the knowledge of the fruit within yourself. Just do the action for the essence of the action, not for the essence of the fruit. Whenever we are getting into action only for the fruit, then it's not karma yoga. It is normal karma. And Krishna has said this, yoga karma sukaushalam, in chapter 2. Yoga, which is karma yoga, that is being talked about in chapter 2 at that point, is karma sukaushalam. It is, in a way, you're doing karma, yes, but it is that small tweak that you put within that karma that makes, even though normal karma binds you with Prakriti, this karma will separate you from Prakriti. And karma yoga has that quality. It is that pusharta, it is that cleverness of using that same karma that binds you to use it to unbind you. That is what Krishna is saying, yoga karma sukaushala. So use karma yoga, use action, that's fine. But then use it with a tweak, use it with that cleverness. And Krishna in chapter 2 also says, how is karma yoga supposed to be viewed? Do karma, never run away from karma. Yes? But never also have the essence of the fruit within the karma. Don't only keep the fruit as the main part of the karma. And then also do not get involved with, if the fruit comes, do not emerge into the fruit. Stay within the karma. When happiness and sorrow comes, Do not get yourself one with the happiness and sorrow. Stay within the karma only. Don't get yourself involved with the fruits of the karma. Normally, we do karma to become happy, and that is a fruit of the karma. So when you have the fruit in mind, what will happen after that fruit comes? You'll get involved with the. Krishna is saying, don't get involved with the fruit, and also don't run away from karma. Do karma, not involved with the fruit, not running away, but just within karma. And essentially, if you practice it, you'll also realize that what it does is it gives you immense power, because all your attention is directed towards the karma. It's not directed towards the fruit or running away. It's directed towards karma. Now what happens is you have all the energy to put into karma. Essentially now, there is no way that karma will go wrong, because all your attention, all your energy is focused towards the karma itself, not the fruit. Because when you put the attention towards the fruit, you cannot get the fruit without the karma. So you'll have your attention divided between the fruit and the karma. In that way, not having divided attention between the action and the fruit of the action, only have your attention towards the action, only do the action, not worrying about the fruits, and you'll have undivided attention in that. अन्ये त्वेवम जानन्त श्रुत्वान्येभ्य उपासते तेऽपि चाति तरन्त्येव मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणाः. Krishna is saying, not only those who have undivided attention by ekagrata, by dhyana, not only those who can separate themselves from the prakriti and know that they are Purusha, and not only those who know the cleverness of karma and can do karma in that way, which is called karma yoga, but also those who follow those who have become enlightened. They can also listen to those who have become enlightened and walk their path. After doing which, they have to walk the path also. You see, what Krishna here says is, Shrutva anyebhya upasate. Not only listening to others, you have to also walk the path. And walking the path, meaning what an enlightened person will do essentially here is not dragging you through his path. That's not what he will do. What he will do, because he has also gotten how to be enlightened and he knows how the process works. So what the enlightened person will do is tell you all the paths. And then if you do not still understand which path is for yourself, meaning that you do not understand your nature, which normally happens with people, like they're not able to understand, who am I? Am I a person who will go with intellect, or am I a person who can go with action? Then what Krishna is saying, that allow yourself to be guided by an enlightened person through the path. So what the enlightened person will do is show you all the paths and then take you, holding your hand. This is not literal, but as a metaphor. He will hold your hand through all the paths, slowly by slowly. And then he will ask you, what are you experiencing on this path? And then he will take you back on another path. What are you experiencing on this path of Bhakti Yoga? Then he will take you back. And then he will take you to Dhyana Yoga and ask you, what are you experiencing? According to your experiences, he will tailor a path for you, according to your nature. And that tailoring a path for you, that is what you now have to go on to. And in that way, tepi chati tarankyeva mrityum shruti parayana. Not only those who have the power to know their own path, but also those who also can give into an enlightened person and allow them to tell them that this is your path, according to your experiences, not according to the experience of the enlightened person, but according to the experience of the person who will walk. This is the path of that person. That's what the enlightened person will tell you. And then he will walk that path. And Krishna is allowing all this to happen. Even step by step, even the last step, okay. If you can climb up from there, it's fine. But climb up, get to the peak of the mountain. That is what is important here. However you reach, doesn't matter. But getting to the peak of the mountain is what matters. Getting to know the ultimate is what matters.
Wonderful. Yogeshwar, you have outdone yourself today. This is such a fundamental topic, and I think the clarity with which you talked about it was just amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Folks, go ahead and type exclamation mark if you have questions or comments. We'll start with Evanik, followed by David. Evanik.
First of all, this was really deep. I'm going to have to once again go to YouTube and listen to it all again, and because I know I did not get everything. But one of the things I did like about the second part is looking at the world through the glass. And that's really the only way you can look at it. And so seeing yourself in the glass is it a reflection of what is? And that's the question that you posed. And then if not, whose reflection is it? And I think that was impactful, because sometimes when we're looking at ourselves, like even if you look at yourself, right, you're looking at yourself through a reflection, a glass, a mirror, whatever. But do you see what's there, or do you see what the periphery has told you to be, or what other people have told you are? Do you see those influences in there, or do you just see you? And I think that's what I got from it, because when you said it's a reflection of what is, and then my question is, like, whose reflection is it? Is it my reflection, or is it a reflection of everybody else's wants, needs of me? Especially like, what do they want me to be, and how much does that influence? So that was great. And then when you talked about changing the perception, and you said, look at the mind. And when the example you gave, when you talked about being in a bad mood, and you're saying, is it you? Like, is your mind is in a bad mood? It's not all of you. And that was really profound, because I never looked at it like that. And I never saw it in that way of, kind of like looking at what your mind is thinking. And then you can break it down, like, well, why am I in a bad mood? You can't help what happens, but like, why am I in a bad mood about it? Like, why am I allowing this person, this thing, this event to affect my mind? Essentially, that's what it's doing. It's affecting your mind. And in some cases, it's like changing your mind. And so looking at it through that aspect, it was like, oh, okay, you can release other people's control over you. We talk about in the group a lot about control, and the control we have, like how we try to control things in events, and in some cases people, where the only thing we can control is ourselves. But if you look at it this way, at looking at the mind and seeing what the mind is doing, then you release other people's control over you, I think. And then the last part, when you said the body is a complex tool, but we're not using the manual, I thought it was funny, not in a ha-ha way, but funny how true it is, that we have this body, and we don't look at this body as a tool. We look at this body as this is who we are. Like this is the body, and not and looking at the body as a tool would, I think if a lot of people looked at their body as a tool, it would just change the way we look at each other and look at ourselves, and not say, you know, because in today's world, in the periphery, our body is who we are. You know, that determines our self-worth. If you're looking at it from a peripheral standpoint, it determines our self-worth. It determines our self-image. It determines who we are. And looking at it as the body as a complex tool, but looking at it as a tool would change that a little bit. So those were my thoughts.
Thank you. Yogeshwar, would you like to comment on any of the points?
Yes. So one point about the chitta and the glass. Yes, I get the point of Evanik is saying, but then how Sankhya looks at it, I was trying to explain it. That's fine, how Evanik has understood it. But Shrikant, tell me about how you understand it, because let me explain it again, a little differently, and then tell me how you understand it, so that I can.
Let me do one thing. Let me explicate how I understand it now.
Yes.
And then
Okay.
you can go ahead and correct me. You can go, folks, my understanding of this topic is much lower than what Yogeshwar has, okay? So if there is any conflict, just go with what Yogeshwar says, okay? But I'm going to try, okay? I'm not afraid to try, so I'm going to try. I thought the example of the glass that you had was fantastic. And the way I see it, the way I understand it, it is a dramatic way of capturing this seer, the means of seeing, and the seen. The glass is the means. And the widest principle is that the seer, the seen, the instrument, and what is seen is one. So when you are looking at the glass, most of the times you're looking through the glass, and all you are aware of is the thing you're seeing. And this applies to even your own emotions. Like when you are upset, you're actually seeing something through the glass, and you are saying, oh, that's me. But that is actually what you're seeing. It's something in Prakriti. And you are mistakenly identifying it with the seer. So the glass, most of the times you're not even aware of the glass. You're seeing through the glass, and you're seeing the Prakriti on the other side. You're not aware of the glass, and you're not aware of the seer. You're aware mostly of the Prakriti. Now, when you go to the next stage where you say, oh, I'm looking through a glass, that itself is a step towards consciousness of the means through which you're doing it. And then you realize, so you are kind of noticing the existence of glass. You did not even know that it was there. Then you're seeing through it, and you're seeing that. Then occasionally, only occasionally, you see this faint reflection of there is this person who is actually doing the seeing. And you see it in the reflection. Okay, but that reflection is very small, you know, it's very faint, and it is evanescent, you know, it goes away. It is there sometimes, and then it is gone, because what you're seeing outside dominates your consciousness. But by paying attention, by concentration on these glimpses of the Purusha that you get, you slowly start to realize that there is something on the other side that is doing the seeing. And when you do that, over time, you see that that is actually constant. This surprising thing which you could not even see before is the constant. You know, things outside change all the time when you look through the glass. the glass also changes its nature. It's sometimes it is opaque, sometimes it is, very clear, sometimes it is kind of distorted. So there is stuff happening to the glass too. But over time you realize that there is a steadiness to the seer. Then slowly you realize that actually the glass is the means through which it is actually something that the seer is doing in order to see the Prakriti. And then you see that actually Prakriti is being shaped by the seer, that all of this is actually just one thing, the Brahman. So that's what I got from it. So please go ahead.
So you explained it well. That's how I would like to explain it. Yeah. And one thing to note is this is not just an example for the outside, like when we see ourselves in the glass, but this is of how our mind is working. That glass in the middle is our mental space per se. And we look at the world through our mental space. To put exact words to the glass and what you see through the glass. And then there is he who sees through the mental space. And normally we identify ourselves so much with the mental space. We don't identify ourselves as separate from the mental space. We feel that we are the intellect, or we are the thoughts which arise in our mind, or we are the mind itself. And that concept is what is being brought out here. And that explanation was fine.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, that was wonderful. Thank you, Yogeshwar. Next up is going to be David. David, go ahead.
Yes, thanks. I'm trying to understand in that final verse, talking about the different forms of, well, I mean, it could be interpreted as yogas, how it relates to the Trimarga. I'm sort of surprised that it talks about Dhyana Yoga, which is meditation, and it talks about this discrimination between matter and spirit, but I'm not certain how that corresponds to yogas. And it talks about Karma Yoga, and I'm surprised it doesn't mention Bhakti Yoga or Jnana Yoga. And I'm just trying to understand it because I would have expected it to reiterate that. So I'm trying to understand the connection between that passage's explanation of the different paths to enlightenment and the Trimarga yogas that have been discussed throughout the rest of the Bhagavad Gita.
So Dhyana Yoga is what we have seen in chapter 6, which is itself its name, Dhyana Yoga. And then Sankhya Yoga is Jnana Yoga, which is when they're making a distinction between karma and jnana from chapter 2 to chapter 6 onwards. Yeah, from chapter 2 onwards until chapter 6, the distinction that is made between Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga is that same concept in Sankhya, which is Jnana Yoga. It's just another name for the same. And then Karma Yoga, which we already know. And then what we are seeing as Bhakti Yoga, Krishna here in chapter 12, how he's describing Bhakti Yoga is something like, you already have all this, you have all the instruments. What Bhakti Yoga is like just loving everything that is. And when you start loving everything that is, you essentially just do it. Whether it is Jnana Yoga, or it's Karma Yoga, or it's Dhyana Yoga. If there's not that emotion within it, if there's not that bhakti within it, towards the center, then there's no link between it. Like you'll always feel like, yes, I should do this, but then you'll not have the morale to do it because there's no love within it. You'll feel like I'm getting bored of doing it, even though you know it's the right thing. So what Bhakti Yoga does is bringing all all the essence of doing all the yogas. And as well, as we know it, that is one part of it. And then another part of it as well is Bhakti Yoga is like the acceptance of everything. Because when you love, you accept everything as it is. And acceptance is towards Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and everything as well. But acceptance is like towards reality. And that acceptance towards reality, using love, is what is known as Bhakti Yoga. There is a way you could name it as a different path. Like would normally say Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Yes, that distinction is there. But then also know how Bhakti Yoga is within all the paths as well. Like there's that love that you need within all the paths, and it joins everything together. Without it, there will be no joining between the peripheral and the center. It will be like the peripheral is something from which you cannot get to the center. But the bhakti joins everything. It's like from the peripheral, you can get to the center. It's like the bridge for everything.
David, did that answer the question, or would you like to ask more?
I mean, I don't want to monopolize it. I mean, it didn't quite. I mean, in the sense that I'm trying to understand.
Sure. So
Again,
let me add.
But yeah, we can do it. I mean, another time. But yeah.
Yeah, let me add one thing. Bhagavad Gita is not trying to summarize itself all the time. This is a conversation. So you cannot expect a verse to say, okay, why did it not summarize everything that was said? That is not the purpose. This is a conversation. So he's just showing multiple marks. He's not trying to give you a comprehensive. He spent an entire adhyaya on Bhakti Yoga. And you have to keep that in mind while you're doing, while you're reading this. So it is not a deductive kind of thing, which is, so it's a different kind of a work. And you have to keep that in mind. Next up is Elena.
Thank you. My question is, why so there is Prakriti on the other side. It's the reality and everything else. That's what's being perceived, and everything, the scenery, the smells, the feelings, etc. Why does Purusha exist, the watcher? And he is that true that he cannot feel himself? He cannot see himself. He cannot. And there is another concept about learning the laws of the universe in a way. So like something that the information is needed, and we are providing this information through the experiences. So that's my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Yogeshwar, would you like to answer?
Yes, so Purusha and Prakriti, you see in verse 19, Krishna says, Vidhi anadi ubhavapi. Like, if something is, like for example, if I am, there's no question of why I am. It is there, like I am there. Now, the thing is how to use it. So, Purusha and Prakriti are there from eternal. That's how Krishna is saying that. Like, what Purusha and Prakriti is eternal. How to use it to get to the ultimate is now the question ahead of us. The second part of your question of the Purusha cannot see himself. Now the cannot should be explained, let me explain in 2-3 ways, whereby, do you mean cannot, meaning that can never? Or do you mean cannot, that he cannot see it right now? Like he cannot see himself right now. And if it is like he cannot see himself right now, that's fine. Because even though you do not see yourself right now, there's a possibility that you can see yourself in the future. Like even through the chitta, using you being your own reflection, or even some like what Sankhya Yoga does sometimes is you don't even need to see yourself in the chitta. Like even leave that step. Just be yourself as you are. Just differentiate yourself from the chitta. When that happens, you differentiate yourself from who you are, from the chitta. Then you just realize who you are. Sometimes it's not even knowing or seeing yourself as a reflection. That step is there, but it could also be moved ahead of. So it's experiencing yourself as you are more.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. So I just want to reiterate, I mean, the way in which Bhagavad Gita approaches it is you're simply trying to understand what is. And you always start with what is. You don't say, why is it? Firstly, you have to say it is. You know, it is what it is. That is the starting point of science, of all thinking. So you have to say just what is, you know, that it is, you have to start with. The second is, you know, Purusha is consciousness. So consciousness is what it is. It is, in one sense, you can think of it as consciousness, the seer. And seer has to discover it himself over time. It doesn't automatically, we don't automatically know our consciousness. It is through seeing the Prakriti, then being aware of that glass, which is the mind, that you get to slowly get to the level of, you know, to understanding of being conscious of consciousness, of conscious of Purusha. So it is an achievement that is achieved at. It is not given to you. It is achieved over time. And the knowledge, the last part of your question, you know, what is knowledge? Knowledge in the Indian context is the knowledge of the Purusha, which includes all the three. It is seeing the oneness of the seer, the instrument of seeing, and what is seen. When you grasp all of it and how it is operated, that's what knowledge is in the Indian tradition. Folks, go ahead and type exclamation mark if you have any questions. Next up is Brian.
So I have a quick question just to try to keep myself on track here. Is Purusha the same as Atman?
Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
Yes, Purusha is the Kshetragya. He is the knower and he is the seer. So, how I'd like to put it is, Purusha, there are 2 points of Purusha, whereby there is the reflection of Purusha. Now, you see, sometimes we have to differentiate it certainly, whereby even though the Purusha is a reflection, like you see the Purusha as a reflection, that reflection is distinct from what is on the other side of the mirror, and is also distinct of the mirror. So we have to identify that as different, if you understand, because all these make different steps onto getting to know what reality is. That's why they have different names. That's why Krishna here is also sometimes, he says Purusha, yes. And when Krishna says Purusha, he means the Purusha who is distinct from the mirror, totally distinct, like who is the seer, not just the reflection. But then sometimes, you know, our mind, when it sees the reflection, we feel, yes, I've seen the seer. That's the perspective that we have. I've seen the seer, like I've known the Purusha. That's the perspective you will have. But then still, that's why Krishna then goes ahead in verse 22 and says, Purusha Paraha, puts a qualification to the Purusha now, that the Purusha should be Paraha, he should be beyond. He should not be within the chitta. He should not be within the glass. Because if he's within the glass, then it's still the reflection. So sometimes, like the Atman, yes, he is the Purusha, Like he who is distinct from the Prakriti. That's fine. But then, sometimes the steps are so subtle that you may mistake one step for the other. You may mistake a step that is in the middle for the last step. So that's a subtle distinction, whereby where you say Atman, normally you would mean the individual self, whereby you've identified yourself as distinct from Prakriti, but then you've not yet still identified yourself as one with the ocean. That is where the Brahman concept comes in. That's why you have different names. And wherever you have a different concept, you have to name it different. So that difference between Atman and Brahman, now you'll also make that difference, same difference between Purusha and Purusha Paraha, whereby you'll say Purusha is the Atman, and then you'll say Purusha Para is the Brahman. He is the ultimate reality. Because sometimes you'll know the drop, but then you'll stay as a drop, and that's not the essence of the Gita. The essence of the Gita is getting one with the ocean after knowing yourself as a drop.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. Folks, if you have questions, go ahead and type exclamation mark. I have a question, Yogeshwar. It's a complicated question, and I'm barely able to ask it. When we studied Aquinas, when we studied Gospel of John, Aquinas had a take on eternal life, which was stunning, because most people, when they think of eternal life in the context of Bible, they think of life after death. The point that Aquinas made is that actually eternal life, another sense of eternal life is that life according to the eternal principle, that life focused on God, coming from God and returning to God all the time. If you're doing that, then you have eternal life now. So it is not about promising eternal life sometime in the future. It is promising actually eternal life now, saying that you are acting according to the eternal principle. When you talked, Ed had a fantastic question. If you are eternal already, like Bible also holds that your soul is eternal. If you are already eternal, why do you have to do all of this to achieve eternity? And the answer, so Aquinas' answer to that would be, you are acting in accordance with your eternal nature. When you're operating, when you're standing at the center, and you are sthita prajna, in the sense that you remain there, full of consciousness of everything that is going on. Yes, there is a lot going on, but you are eternal, and you are eternal now, because that's where you're standing. That's how I see the connections. What do you think?
Yes, so eternal life is now, according to Gita. It's not like afterwards. That is one thing that is common between both of them. And then as well, Aquinas also talks about, the living water within.
Mm-hmm.
So that living water is within right now.
Yes.
But normally when we're talking about water, we think about something outside. And then Aquinas, when he's talking about the lady at the well,
Mm-hmm.
so he talks about this, like the living water that is eternal, and it is inside. It's the same way of pointing towards something that is eternal, happening right now, and is inside of you. Don't look outside, in a way. And even the being inside, it's not like, like it's inside the body, so maybe you'll find it using some instrument. But it's something that consciousness, like go back into. Don't look outside into the Prakriti and look back into the seer, and then you'll know what is eternal inside. Use your eyes. It's like in Upanishad, how it's put is, use your eyes. Normally, if they're facing outwards, use the same eyes to look inwards, meaning not these eyes, because these eyes you cannot turn back them in, but then the consciousness, the eyes of consciousness and attention. You're giving attention outside. Now give attention inside. When the attention moves inside, and then you realize that there's something there, which is eternal. And this realization is something important, because however much somebody talks about the concept of love, it's an emotion we all know, but however much we just talk about it, until you experience it, you do not know what it is. That experience is important. Experience of eternal is like the eternal life is important. That fountain that is within you, fountain of water, as Aquinas puts it, it's always eternal. And the source is eternal as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. Next up is Ed. Ed, go ahead.
I really enjoyed hearing what you both just had to say. And the connection that was kind of firing in my mind was going from what you were bringing out of Aquinas, this idea of having the eternal life now. It sounded to me like what Yogeshwar was saying when he talked about karma yoga as being guaranteed if you're not focused on the goal, but you're focused on the karma.
Wonderful. Yogeshwar, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, so looking at it through different lenses will be perspectives, because even, and Krishna doesn't say perspectives are wrong. For example, somebody could look at through the lens of karma yoga. Another would say he sees the same thing in jnana yoga. Another will say he will see the same thing in bhakti yoga or dhyana yoga. That's fine. The main thing is if you can see through any lens that what ultimate is, that will be really fine.
Wonderful. So I will say a couple of things, and Yogeshwar, if you'd like, you can comment on it. The way I see it here is the karma yoga, by focusing on what you should be doing, you're just focused on what you should be doing, and you remain focused on that. So there's all kinds of stuff going on, and you're just remaining focused on what you should be doing. In dhyana yoga, you get that glimpse, okay? You get that glimpse in that glass of yourself, your Purusha, and then you focus like a laser beam on that. You keep your attention on that, okay? That's how you get to eternal in that sense. In karma yoga, you're doing things eternally, and this is what I'm doing, what I should be doing all the time. So in that sense, you are constant. You're constant. When you're focused in dhyana yoga, when you've said, okay, I got this, not letting it go, I'm going to keep my attention there. Again, you're constant. In jnana yoga or Sankhya yoga, right? You're made all these distinctions, and you figured out this exactly is where Purusha is. This is exactly what it is. And you never lose that identification. Never lose that. That's how you do it in Jnana Yoga. And in Bhakti Yoga, you see some glimpse of it somewhere, and you love it so much that your heart doesn't go anywhere else. But in all these cases, you see the constancy. The constancy of you. And it is the constancy of you focused on the constancy. So that's how I see eternal life in all these four. Any thoughts, Yogeshwar?
Yeah, so there are different ways of seeing this eternal life. That's a view of like how you viewed it was through Sankhya, looking at all of them, but you looking through the lens of Sankhya to all of them. Now, if somebody would do, let me just give an example. This is just an example. If somebody would view it through bhakti, yeah, what that person will do is love is everything. Yeah, love the center, like love. That's everything. When you love everything eternally, what happens is because unconditional love, that's what Bhakti Yoga is, not just love as we know it, but unconditional love. When you love everything unconditionally, that love flows through you. Yeah? And that love is what, in a way, how to express your love is through karma. Like you do that karma. And you see, certainly in Bhakti Yoga, karma happens without fruit. You don't expect the fruit. It's just out of love. That's how somebody of Bhakti Yoga would view it. And then how Dhyana Yoga is viewed is that automatically happens through bhakti. Love is something that attaches you directly to whatever you want to focus on. If it's the center, even though it's something at the peripheral, that's fine. As long as you love it unconditionally. That's one thing. Not just love it, but love it unconditionally. And when you love it unconditionally, you'll realize that the Brahman is there in Prakriti as well. Yeah? So that Brahman within Prakriti is what you see when you pay minute attention to it with all the love. And the Jnana Yoga, how it fits into this is when you do all this, all the distinctions are in front of you and all the oneness is also in front of you together. When you love it so much, you know it as well. And when you love, there's no way you cannot know it. Like if you love someone so much, there's no way you don't know that person. So if you love the ultimate so much, if you love reality so much, there's no way you do not know it. You know each and every aspect of it. So this one way of viewing it, and you can have as many lenses as possible.
Yeah, beautifully put, Yogeshwar. See, the thing is that Gita is so deep that, whenever I try to grab it, I just get some things from it. And then, like, for example, like bhakti, right? It is very complex. Each of these yogas are like an ocean itself, okay? It's like another take on the ocean. And like, for example, Bhakti Yoga, you have this unconditional love for everything. So it's like way you react to everything in the Bhakti Yoga tradition is very different than you would do in the Sankhya tradition. So there are like each of them, like, and Yogeshwar is absolutely right. The way I put all of those was from the Sankhya tradition. Okay, I did not realize it while I was doing that, but that's exactly from the Sankhya tradition. And each of these is very profound and very deep. And that's what that's why, Gita is as great as it is. All right, folks. So I think, this was just amazing. This is, I don't know. I think Yogeshwar, I think I'm going to keep saying it, but this is definitely my favorite meetup so far, because, and we are building on it, right? I mean, it's our experience, it's our learning. Each of us is understanding, more, and all those layers are coming together. And partly that is how Gita is, you're learning, you're learning with Arjun a little bit. And so thank you very much. And today was really, really special. Thank you very much, Yogeshwar, and thank you, everybody. Bye, everybody. We're going to be back tomorrow, so we'll continue and finish rest of the chapter here tomorrow. So don't miss that. Bye.